Welcome to Rugby Rundown. I'm Adrian.
And I'm Gavin. Today we're diving deep into what can only be described as the most seismic shift in world rugby we've witnessed in decades. 2 years out from the 2027 World Cup in Australia, the entire global hierarchy is being rewritten before our eyes.
Absolutely, Gavin. We're looking at traditional powerhouses losing their aura of invincibility, genuine new challengers emerging from unexpected quarters, and a level of unpredictability that makes the road to 2027 absolutely thrilling. Let's start with the Six Nations, where we saw France claim their first title since 2022.
France were devastating, Adrian. That plus 125 points difference tells the whole story. When you can demolish Wales 43-0 and put 73 points on Italy in Rome, you're operating on a different level. But what really caught my attention was how they handled Ireland in Dublin. That 42-27 bonus point victory that essentially decided the championship. The French attack is poetry in motion, a perfect symphony of forward brutality and backline artistry.
But here's the fascinating paradox with France. They've got the highest ceiling in world rugby, yet they're still carrying that brittleness we've seen before. That 26-25 loss to England at Twickenham denied them the Grand Slam and showed they can still be unsettled under sustained pressure. Even in their title-clinching win over Scotland, it was described as a nervy first half before their quality prevailed. It makes them simultaneously the most dangerous and most unpredictable team heading into 2027.
Now let's talk about Ireland, because while they finished third in the Six Nations table, I'd argue their overall impact on 2025 surpassed everyone else. Their 4-1 record included the Triple Crown, and that ruthless efficiency continued with a summer tour that saw them demolish Georgia 34-5 and absolutely annihilate Portugal 106-7. But the real validation came through the Lions Tour.
The Lions Tour was fascinating on so many levels. Andy Farrell leading the combined home nations was a massive endorsement of the Irish system. They secured a 2-1 series victory with 15 Irish players, the largest contingent from any single nation. While France lifted the Six Nations trophy, it's the Irish system that's producing the hemisphere's most sought-after coach and most consistent pool of elite talent.
And then there's England. What a resurgent story. That 26-25 victory over eventual champions France was the scalp of the tournament, followed by that spectacular 68-14 dismantling of Wales in Cardiff. 10 tries, absolutely ruthless. Their summer tour of the Americas was equally impressive, comfortable wins over Argentina and a dominant performance against the USA. But here's my tactical question, Adrian. Which England will show up at the World Cup?
That's the million-dollar question, Gavin. They've shown they can win tight attritional contests through pragmatism and defensive grit. Those one-point victories over Scotland and France prove that. But they've also got the attacking firepower to overwhelm opponents when they click. The challenge is synthesizing those two identities consistently against the world's best. Can they blend that formidable power with creative, incisive attacking play when it really matters? That's what will determine their World Cup ceiling.
Speaking of synthesis, let's talk about the Lions Tour to Australia, because this story has multiple layers. On paper, it was an unequivocal success. First Lions series win in Australia since 2013. They clinched it with a game to spare, and that second test comeback was absolutely monumental. Down 23-5, they roared back to win 29-26 with Hugo Keenan's try in the 79th minute. Pure theater.
But here's where it gets interesting, Gavin. The British media narrative was good, but not great. The failure to secure a 3-0 whitewash, losing that rain-soaked Sydney finale 22-12 tempered the celebrations. The critique was valid. Shouldn't a combined team of the four home nations have been more dominant against a rebuilding Australian side? It raises questions about the collective ceiling of the home nations as they prepare to become fierce rivals again at the World Cup. But for Australia, this tour was transformational. Joe Schmidt's meticulous guidance took a team emerging from the nadir of a pool stage exit at the 2023 World Cup and restored credibility. Pushing a Lions team that had demolished their Super Rugby franchises 54-7 to the absolute limit was monumental progress. That third test victory was hailed as more than just a dead rubber. It was a springboard that forged belief, toughness, and tactical identity.
And boy, did that springboard work, because what happened next in the Rugby Championship was absolutely seismic. The traditional Southern Hemisphere duopoly of New Zealand and South Africa has been fundamentally challenged. Let's start with the All Blacks and that historic defeat to Argentina in Buenos Aires. 29-23, the first time they've ever lost to Los Pumas on Argentine soil.
That performance was uncharacteristically ragged from New Zealand, Gavin. Chronic ill discipline resulted in 3 yellow cards and left them with just 41% possession. But true to form, they responded with that classic backs-to-the-wall 24-17 victory over South Africa at Eden Park. However, the analysis reveals they were forced into a defensive masterclass, conceding both territory 60-40 and possession 52-48 to the Springboks.
This signals the end of an era, Adrian. For decades, the All Blacks' greatest weapon was that aura of invincibility that often defeated teams before kickoff. Argentina's victory has shattered that mystique, proving New Zealand is vulnerable to well-coached, passionate opposition beyond their traditional rivals. They're no longer blowing elite teams away with attacking verve, they're being forced to grind out victories. That psychological shift levels the playing field completely.
And South Africa's struggles are equally concerning for the world champions. That stunning 38-22 loss to Australia at Ellis Park, where the Wallabies hadn't won since 1963, was alarming. To squander a dominant 22-0 lead inside 20 minutes and then concede 6 unanswered tries? Commentators are calling their game plan damn predictable, criticizing the over-reliance on box kicking and lack of innovation in attack.
Key players like Handré Pollard are being criticized for inconsistency, and you can see rival coaches, particularly Joe Schmidt, have begun to decode that formula that brought South Africa back-to-back World Cups. The champions face a critical dilemma. Do they evolve their tactics and risk diluting their greatest strength, or stick with a successful but potentially solved game plan? Their response will define their World Cup defense. Now let's talk about the big movers of 2025, Argentina and Australia. Argentina's landmark year began with a 28-24 victory over the Lions in a pre-tour warm-up in Dublin, culminated in that historic win over the All Blacks, and they were desperately unlucky to lose to Australia in Townsville, leading 21-7 at halftime, only to be defeated by a try in the 86th minute.
Australia's revival is even more remarkable when you consider where they were 12 months ago. That Ellis Park victory was a performance of incredible resilience and attacking opportunism that has re-established them as a global force. Under Joe Schmidt and Felipe Contepomi, both Australia and Argentina are playing with a tactical sophistication and mental fortitude that makes them legitimate title contenders. For the first time in over 2 decades, the Rugby Championship is a genuine 4-way contest. But it's not just the traditional powers being challenged. The Pacific nations are making serious waves. Fiji's 29-14 victory over Scotland wasn't an upset, it was a statement. Currently ranked 9th in the world, they sit ahead of Six Nations competitors like Italy and represent a major threat at the World Cup. Tonga has already qualified for 2027, and Japan continues to show its potency with dominant performances.
This is crucial, Adrian. These nations can no longer be considered easy beats for the top seeds. In previous World Cups, pool matches against Tier 2 teams were opportunities to rotate squads. Fiji beating Scotland proves that's now a perilous assumption. A top seed drawn against a high-flying, confident team like Fiji or Japan faces a genuine threat of a pool stage exit. These ascendant nations have become the new kingmakers.
So where does this leave us heading into 2027? The landscape is more volatile and unpredictable than it's been in decades. The old hierarchies are crumbling, new challengers are emerging with genuine credentials, and the margin for error has never been smaller. The traditional powerhouses can no longer rely on reputation or past glories.
All right, Adrian, prediction time. Based on current form, tactical evolution, and momentum, who are your likely World Cup semi-finalists?
Bold prediction coming up. I think we're looking at France, Ireland, Australia, and Argentina as our most likely semi-finalists. Such a lineup would see both New Zealand and South Africa absent from the Final Four, which would represent a seismic shift for world rugby. France has that devastating attacking arsenal. Ireland has systemic excellence. Australia has been revitalized under Schmidt's guidance, and Argentina has proven they can beat anyone, anywhere.
That's a fascinating prediction, and based on what we've seen this year, it's entirely plausible. The traditional same old guard will likely still provide the eventual winner, but the hierarchy within that guard has been fundamentally altered. Argentina has unequivocally broken into that top echelon. Plus, teams like Fiji have proven they can derail the best-laid plans of any top seed.
Exactly. The old order isn't overthrown, but it's under siege from both within and without. The path to 2027 glory is now fraught with peril at every turn. Pool stages that were once formalities could become elimination matches. Quarterfinals that seemed predictable are now genuine coin tosses. It's going to be a thrillingly unpredictable road to Australia.
The beauty of sport is that form is temporary, but class is permanent. However, right now, the form book has been completely rewritten. Traditional powerhouses are being forced to evolve or risk being left behind, while hungry challengers are seizing their moment with both hands.
Before we wrap up today's rugby rundown, let's look ahead at some key fixtures that will provide crucial insights into these shifting power dynamics.
Absolutely crucial, Adrian. The Autumn Internationals in November will be our first real barometer of where these teams truly stand. France hosting New Zealand at the Stade de France will be fascinating. Can the All Blacks rediscover that killer instinct against European opposition, or will France's attacking brilliance expose further cracks in New Zealand's armor?
And that Ireland versus Australia clash in Dublin will be absolutely pivotal. Ireland's Aviva Stadium has become a fortress, but Joe Schmidt knows that system inside and out. If Australia can get a result there, it would send shockwaves through European rugby and confirm their status as genuine World Cup contenders. Meanwhile, South Africa's tour of the UK will test whether they can adapt their game plan away from home against teams that have clearly studied their blueprint.
The Pacific Nations Cup will also be worth monitoring closely. With Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga all showing improved form, we could see some genuine upsets against Northern Hemisphere opposition. Remember, these teams are no longer happy to just participate. They're coming to win. The gap between Tier 1 and Tier 2 nations has narrowed dramatically, and that has massive implications for World Cup pool draws.
And from a player development perspective, this is the perfect time to be emerging as a rugby talent. The established pecking order has been disrupted, creating opportunities for breakout stars to make their mark. Young players in Argentina, Australia, and even those Pacific Island nations now have genuine pathways to World Cup glory that simply didn't exist 5 years ago. The depth of global talent has never been richer.
For our listeners, this is genuinely the most exciting time to be following international rugby. Every test match now carries genuine significance. Every result can reshape the World Cup landscape. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we'll be tracking every twist and turn on this road to Australia 2027. The old certainties are gone, and that makes every match unmissable.
That's a wrap on today's extended Rugby Rundown. I'm Adrian.
And I'm Gavin. Thanks for staying with us for this deep dive into rugby's changing landscape. Until next time, keep watching this incredible rugby revolution unfold. And remember, in this new era of world rugby, expect the unexpected.